Thanks everyone for tuning in to check out our podcast today, Maker Connect. My name is Matt Despins, and I'll be your host for the show. With me today, we have our guest, Lawrence Lanzilli. Lawrence is currently a Chief Revenue Officer at Nexos Technology, and no doubt has some stories, expertise, and opinions to share. And as always, we'll just keep it fun, relaxed, and casual. Lawrence, if you're open to it, I'd love to start by asking you to tell us just a little bit about your career and your background so the listeners can get just a flavor of your negotiation experience. Also, maybe you can let us know at what point in your career did you discover the importance of negotiations and start to actually take it seriously. So, Lawrence, we're excited to have you here with us. And with that, I'll turn it over to you to brag about yourself for just a minute. It's the host who's making a specific request that you brag. So your humility will remain fully intact. I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Matt. First of all, thank you for having me on the show. Really,
our pleasure.
Love the show. So it's interesting from my perspective, I guess. I made a bit of a flip. Went into college as a computer science major and got a degree in computer science. So approached the world as a very technical sort of, with a technical perspective. Started my first software company, and that's really where I got burned enough where I learned that I needed to focus on negotiations. I was technical. I was a programmer, like an intern at IBM, and then I was an intern at Microsoft. I was programmer, and then like SE, where I started to get into sales with Microsoft, like supporting sales. And then after I graduated and went really full time with my own endeavors, that's where it was a very custom software type of business. And as I'm closing deals, there were some early on bad deals that I closed. And that's where I really learned, like, I got to start focusing on this stuff. Now, that software company ran for 8 years, ended up selling it, so I got good at it eventually. But that's really where I started to learn about it. After that, with some success at that company, I met some individuals who were bigger than me, better than me at things like negotiation and investing and starting companies. The next big venture was a hardware company. We were the first flash array. So technically speaking, like flash storage in your phone, right? Compared to the big spinning disk behemoths that were in data centers, right? So we were taking these massively large data centers and shrinking them down into like pizza-sized boxes of storage, right? So we were the first. Now, also, aside from that size difference, there's also a huge performance difference. So we enabled high frequency trading on Wall Street, right? So we were able to take massively large big data, analyze it very quick. Instead of these applications analyzing massive tick data once every day and readjusting their strategy, we were allowing them to analyze their data once or twice or 3 times every minute and restructure their strategies, which now they're down to like once or twice every second, right? It's per second. But then, so 10 years ago, that was the paradigm shift. And obviously, if you have that technology in your back pocket, where are you going to be selling into first and foremost? It's Wall Street, right? So we started going after, and actually they started going after us too, was the big banks. And that's really where I started negotiating in very large scale with the big guys, right? Yeah.
You had mentioned talking about some of the missteps or unfavorable outcomes that you had in the beginning. We've all been there, right? We've all been there. And we often talk about our most valuable lessons being our most painful ones. Is that something that you've experienced in your career as well? Is that the ones where you really learned? I mean, you've obviously, in looking at your career, you've had a ton of success and listening to what we're chatting about here. But do you feel that you have been molded and shaped by some of those early mistakes?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. I think anybody that would say different is lying, right? Yeah, without a doubt. Those ones that burn and sting I still think about what I could have done differently frequently. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's, I think every decision in life for all of us in the business and personal, you always, you're taking the information that you have at the time and making the best decision that you can and kind of standing fast with it. I'm interested, with your technical background, I'd like to hear your thoughts on a couple of questions that I usually talk about a little bit later in the podcast. But with that tech background, I want to ask you, there's some schools of thought out there in regards to negotiations as both an art and as a science. And, some people tend to lean one way or the other, or some think it's a 50-50 split. So, based on what your opinion and what you've seen in your career, what do you feel about negotiations as it relates to both an art and a science?
Good question.
Yeah.
It is both. I wouldn't put a percentage split on it because I think it's different in every example. Um, let's take a big bank, for example. If I'm negotiating with a big bank, there's a negotiation with the business, there's a negotiation with IT, there's a negotiation with procurement. There's 10 people in each of those. And then there's some other people that are just different in every bank that you also need to negotiate with. Um, and everybody comes at it differently, right? Some people that are just super analytic, they don't want to speak with you. Maybe they're on their Six Sigma, uh, whatever, they don't want to negotiate. They don't want a relationship. They don't want to talk more than numbers. That's going to
Yep.
be largely, math and analytical. Um, Other people buy on relationship, and they're going to be that becomes more of an art. And some people are going to be a bit of a mix, right? So and then sometimes you need to sell on analytics frequently, all the time. You need to sell on analytics, but you need to deliver those analytics in a way that's not, displeasing to the people that you're trying to sell to, right? Or maybe you need to have them just see that this is mutually beneficial for both of us. And, it's important for you to believe that yourself. If you don't truly believe that, you are doing good here, get out, do something
Get
else.
out.
You need to believe that so that the art is true, that.
Yeah, and so it sounds like what you're touching on, which I mean, you're really nailing it on the head. The same way I believe, is that a different tool in the toolbox for each situation that comes up, right? Sometimes you need a very analytical approach, and sometimes it is a bit more of an art form. And sometimes in the same deal, it can be a healthy, you need to be able to toggle between the two, right?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
The I want to talk a minute in that world of speaking about art or the softer parts of negotiation. Let's talk a minute about fear. And you know, at the Maker Group, our clients span multiple different industries, and so we see it from a lot of different perspectives. And I think you share that as well, where you've been in different industries and a wide array of expertise and different things that you've done. Where have you seen fear in negotiations? Either people who are on the other side of the table, or as maybe some of your teammates. Where have you seen fear, and kind of where do you think it comes from when people are headed into a negotiation?
Hmm. So when you say where have I seen it, or do you mean like I've witnessed other people and I think that person's afraid, or I know that person's afraid, or is it also maybe me who's afraid?
All of it. And I wouldn't ask you for, specifics, or I know you wouldn't want to do that anyway, but like, I mean, just like in general, when you think about a negotiation, and you think about people who are scared of a negotiation, what do you think that they're scared of? What parts of that negotiation do you think are causing fear in them?
Yeah. So, I think the largest thing that you see especially in IT or technical type of sales,
Mm-hmm.
is maybe like a a procurement or a technical person, just really being afraid of the communication and the relationship building. They're maybe a little bit more recluse.
Yep.
uh, I mean, myself coming out of computer science, I was a little bit different because I could talk, right? I could
Mm-hmm.
had a really good social sort of aptitude to get up with about me, right? So that's why I got into negotiating in sales and ultimately entrepreneurialism. But um, a lot of people who are super technical, hyper technical, the algorithmic programmers out there, sometimes it's hard for them to communicate, and they view you as a sales guy. So they're like, this guy's a professional at relationship building, and that they could be like, he's gonna attack me. Like I,
Mm-hmm.
that's probably what you see more often than anything else. Um, but there's other forms of scared too, right? I mean, I can tell you from a young entrepreneurial perspective, when I quit Microsoft
Mm.
in, I guess I was 21 or 22, and started my own gig. I think I did. I actually went to the ER one time with like heart palpitations, like, and I'm like
Wow.
pitching deals. I'm trying to close deals because I need to make money, but like, I'm afraid that if I don't close these deals, like, how am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to pay my mortgage? Like, you got to close these deals. So there's that kind of fear. Maybe that's more of a pressure type of fear,
Mm-hmm.
but that's big too.
I mean, that's a powerful moment at 21 years old, to hear about that. And I think that a lot of the listeners can resonate with that. People, it's not always that people are fearing the deal falling apart or not getting the deal. They're fearing what the outcome of not getting that deal is. Like you pointed out, Lawrence, you nailed it right on the head. Not being able to pay your rent or provide for family or whatnot. That's where some of that fear is being generated. What do you think about, and have you seen in your own experiences, people, especially those technical folks who are not that able to communicate that well? What do you think about people being uncomfortable or scared of uncomfortable situations, right? Like I don't want them to be mad at me. I don't want to make anybody angry. Have you seen that?
Oh yeah, for sure. First of all, there's a lot of super technical people that can communicate really good too. I don't want to say that that's like,
Sure.
generally, but there's a segment of that type of person who just prefers, just they don't even want to get into it, right? Um, but
Sometimes I
that's
don't blame them, sir.
right.
Yeah.
Um, but that said, yes, we've definitely seen that. It So hold on, let me put a pin in it because I lost giving my disclaimer. I lost my train of thought there.
Yeah, yeah,
Give me.
no, yeah, we were talking about people's kind of general discomfort with being uncomfortable,
Right.
like in the sense of being scared of difficult conversations or headed into a negotiation where they think that the other party might be a little bit aggressive towards them. So those kinds of fears, I was asking kind of if you had seen those in the past or maybe experienced yourself somebody that you were headed into a negotiation with who you knew was going to really create a tense situation.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll keep my disclaimer there and we'll just pick the pin up here, right?
Yep.
Or you want me to say the disclaimer again?
No, go ahead. Oh, so I think I misunderstood. You were going to say a disclaimer about that question.
Well, disclaimer about some people are really good at communicating and super technical too. It's not that everybody super technical is just not good at communicating. But that said, now yes, there are some people who are very technical, and they have that fear. My suggestion to them would be: you're not growing unless you are uncomfortable. Get
Mm,
involved in that negotiation. And then on the other side of the coin, that's maybe from the client side. If I'm the person selling, from the salesperson's perspective, I can tell you, and I will not mention any names here,
Yep.
but man, this is a laughable one. This is
Okay. I'm
uh,
ready. Let's hear it.
it's laughable, but it's also going to make you feel a little like, ugh, like you know,
Like maybe a shower is in store. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So this was a person that I was actually was higher up than me. This is early on in my career, and I'm sitting next to him in front of a C-level executive on Wall Street, and we're
Hmm.
in there. We're in the executive's office, and he kind of like, let me ask you, we're all human here. I see you have your picture of your wife and your kids there, and this is we if we have to close this deal because we all have families, we need to provide for our families, right? So can we just get this deal like, done today? We've been negotiating in a long time. I have kids, and I want my wife to be proud of me too. And I was sitting there as, a young, I was probably 26, 27 years old. And I was, are, are you seriously telling this person that you want him to close the deal because you have a wife and kids? The person never spoke to us again. When we left, I blew up. I was so angry at this person. And that person's response to me while we're walking down Broad Street, down near Wall Street, that person's response to me was, he admitted, he was, you know, you're right. I kind of like I got a little scared there.
Hmm.
And so when you mentioned like, is there a time that somebody got scared? I'm like, yeah, that guy was really, really scared and he messed the whole thing up.
Yeah, I've seen that play before. I've seen that where, and it's another topic I want to talk about here in terms of like preparation for negotiations. But people, I think, have a tendency, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. People have a tendency to, when they're not properly prepared, or maybe they're a little bit intimidated or scared, that they will just talk.
Bleh.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. They will just say things that otherwise later on they might say, "Wow, I mean, I really wish I hadn't said that." So, um, that might be an example of somebody who really, needed to think that out a little bit more. But yeah, I've seen that play where people try to bring in, "Hey, look, I'm just trying to provide for my family and all that stuff," and that's not usually received well by the other party. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%. You want to provide for your family, then put the time in studying and being comprehensive at delivering value for your client. That's how you show, that I'm providing for my family the right way.
Yeah, amazing. Well, and that, talking about that, that's one of the key and core concepts that we talk about a lot on this podcast. With our guests bring it up a lot too, and we believe in it strongly, which is that pre-planning and pre-planning and looking at factors ahead of the negotiation. In your opinion, Lawrence, can that be overstated? The value of pre-planning. I mean, is that what a negotiation in your mind, is that one of the key tenets of it, or how do you feel about that?
No, it can't be overstated.
Mm,
It can be over executed. You can spend. I'm OCD with it. I
yeah.
probably spend more time than I need to preparing for everything and reading through details of contracts and trying to interpret things multiple different ways, just so that I can try to pre-plan responses and thinking multiple steps out. And maybe I go too deep with it, but still, that's my OCD. But no, it can't be overstated from a offering advice perspective. Plan.
Yeah, because it gives you that confidence, right? I mean, when you go into a negotiation and you feel like you have taken a hold of, or at least understand the variables that are available to you, I mean, it gives you a lot of confidence.
It's studying, right? Yeah, like if you
Yeah.
put the time in studying, then you have a lot of confidence. My whole degree is that I never knew, sorry, I never thought that I would be a programmer. Most people with degrees in computer science are programmers or super super technical on an day-to-day basis. I never thought that I was going to be a programmer. I got a degree in what I knew I wanted to sell.
Wow.
And I forced myself through that degree. I forced myself to focus on it just to show a level of respect to that industry, that when I do go out there into the world, I am going to be able to dive deep into the business and provide value, really hit the core concepts that my clients care about. I want to be able to provide that value. So that I put that amount of time into preparing for what I'm about to sell.
It's a level, I think it shows a level of respect too, a level of respect because you're trying to form that partnership in a negotiation as well, and showing the other party that you respect them enough to do that, I think is big. The other big advantage, I mean, stop me if you heard this, a lot of people have, some people haven't, but Mike Tyson's famous saying about what happens in a fight, right? And having a plan going into a fight. Have you heard that before?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, but when you go into the fight and you get quote unquote punched in the face, it's hard to pivot and adapt if you don't have a proper plan for variables, right? So that when you do get that proverbial change or punch in the face, that you can then change up your approach to counteract that. Is that what you've seen too?
Yeah, totally. And here's maybe where you apply a little bit of the art as well, right? So
Yeah.
art is going to come into play. I love the sports reference. I use them all day, every day, and all of my. Um, I think it's huge. I do a lot of coaching still. Currently, I'm a bit. I'm a former athlete. We'll call it. Um, but I think that athlete mentality is huge in negotiations and business. I think I hold it near and dear. I apply it to my um, everyday routines.
you know, this could be a little bit of a sensitive topic here, talking with somebody from New York, but I am a Boston guy here. So I think both of us, I think both of us have good reason to uh, be sports motivated. We both have the good fortune of a number of amazing sports franchises in our city, right?
Yeah, you're not far from home here. I'm in New York now, but I only went there to conquer business. I grew up in Boston.
Oh, okay. All right,
This
cool. So,
this is actually this is a blue a 19 this is a 1934 blueprint of Fenway Park
oh,
with
get out of here.
actual sand from that year in Fenway Park.
What
That's
year did you say again?
this is a 1934 blueprint.
1934.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Wow.
memorabilia in here, and most of it's Boston. Yeah.
I mean, to our listeners, I mean, I already like Lawrence. Now we're like best friends. I mean, so especially a guy down in New York. For those in the West Coast and stuff, we don't know. Yes, there's a rivalry, but generally we do kind of have a mutual respect for each other. Although Lawrence is
Yeah.
from Boston. Um, so Lawrence, I want to talk a second about negotiating internally versus externally. You had talked a little bit ago about, when, and that works both ways, right? So if you have two parties negotiating, one party, they're negotiating with slash against each other, but then both of them have internal alignment that they're trying to seek in order to approach that. What challenges have you seen either on your own side or the other party with trying to get that internal alignment with internal stakeholders? So essentially, the crux of the question is really the difference is between negotiating internally versus externally.
Yes. Okay. So another good question. On the let's call it the vendor side,
Yeah.
right? It's been all different points in my career.
Mhm.
Maybe this is more of the art, because if you try to interview for a position or negotiate with partners, or my last 10 years, 10, 15 years has really been negotiating with investors, right? It's more about, here's what I'm going to do, here's why the ROI is going to be realized.
Mhm.
But that's all sort of futurist, future stuff. Like, nobody can take that stuff to the bank. They have to just trust you that you're going to go for it and you're going to get it, and they take a risk just like you're taking a risk by, I hope this product that I'm going to sell or that I'm bringing to market is good enough. So that's one internal. It's, you really have to quantify that ROI provide good enough plans for, here's the business plan, here's how I'm going to get it to market, here's how much, here's the value that we're going to bring to the market, here's the go-to-market plan, here's my partners, who else is going to help me take to market, here's my scale plan. So again, prep, how much can you prep to provide supporting evidence of what that ROI is going to be? That's the internal side of the house. The external side of the house, if I'm selling to a big bank or I'm selling to a Fortune 10 to 20, whatever, I always use a phrase that if I'm selling to you, I want you to wholeheartedly know that my intention is to get you promoted. And if you will let me know what it is, what are the details that gets you promoted, then let me structure my presentation, my delivery, my value around helping you achieve that. Now, maybe it's something that I just can't help with, and I get that, and but if we're here talking about this particular IT product that your firm needs, then I'm going to deliver that presentation most likely to you and to your C levels and maybe even to your board. And, I can deliver that presentation in a way that shows a real partnership between myself and you as the executive, and why your work with me has been instrumental in getting this product structured and priced to the point where it's just an absolute win for your company. That should get you promoted, right? So like, if you don't help, if you're not really trying to help that person, then you're not helping them with their own internal negotiation. Right?
What you just said hit on a topic. I mean, you really spoke to it perfectly, which is part of a successful negotiation strategy. One part of it is that you need to give the other side their victory speech, right?
Oh yeah.
They, they need to walk away because they have a boss too. They have people that they report to. And so they need to walk away with the ability to say, well, I won this. And so you looking at things that are maybe high value to them, but not high value to you, and working collaboratively. Um, it's like what a lot of what you're saying is, I'm getting the sense that you're a believer in relationships, building those relationships being one of the core tenets. Is that right?
Absolutely. Without a doubt. It's everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and we see that time and time again, which is those people who aren't focused on the relational part of the negotiation, who treat it as a mathematical equation. They're getting a lot of pushback, and they're not getting those long-term results. Speaking about mathematical equations, when you look at the way that negotiations are portrayed in movies versus the ones in real life. Movies, there's a lot of high emotion, yelling, manipulation, angling, leverage creation, sometimes illegally. Um, what are a couple of or one, two of the differences that you see most prevalent between a real life high level negotiation, of which you've been part of many, and something that the folks are seeing in the movies?
Well, they sometimes frequently, even they vary greatly, right?
Yeah.
Same thing in sports, right? Like you're watching this sports show and this whole movie is about this basketball player, and then all of a sudden, halfway through the show, he actually picks up a basketball, and you're like, that guy does not play basketball. But like, it's the same. I refute. My wife loves the show Shark Tank.
Okay.
I won't watch it. I don't watch it. It's because I do that every day, and I'm gonna be like these guys are nowhere close to what you got to do. That's not what you have to do. Like I'd say no
There,
too, you know. So like,
well, you're 100% right. So yeah, like, well, you know what? Let's actually back that up from it. So let's take Shark Tank, for example, because I agree with you, by the way. I refuse to watch that show. But what are some, like, what are they doing in that show that maybe our listeners who don't have your level of experience, what are they doing in that show that you're seeing different in real life?
well, it's countless stuff, right? I mean, maybe they're up to they're presenting, a service based business that has no protectable IP, and they're asking for investment. And, as far as a service-based business, the only thing that you can really deem as IP is your process. If your process is proprietary and you've been in that business for long enough where that process could be considered proprietary and successful, and even if you, God forbid, died, that process and company will continue, then that could be viewed as IP and investable. But without something like that, maybe I've been, I don't know, selling cups that I'm just buying here and selling there. And, now all of a sudden, because I've put the sweat into it enough, I made some sales. Now I'm going looking for investment. There's no IP. Why are you even here? Why am I even watching this show? Um, you know, but there's unlimited amounts of examples of, things that are not investable. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sound like the movies, even in like courtroom dramas, legal system, or negotiations. It's all like high emotion. It's over in 10 minutes. Someone delivers the dagger of the blow, but it sounds like from what you're saying, in reality, it's much more of a marathon of small data points versus one all encompassing brushstroke. Is that accurate way to say it?
Yes, yeah. And you have to deliver all of those with a particular polish, right? And even the response should have a particular polish. Take what's our fellow Bostonian on the show, Mr. Wonderful, is it?
Oh, Mr. Wonderful. That's right. Yeah.
Wonderful. Look at the way he responds to some of those people. Whether you're investing in me or not, like, and how do they always respond? They'll respond with like, "Okay, thank you," and move on to the next. Like that wouldn't be my response. My response would be just as we wouldn't be communicating like that.
Agreed. I am with you 100%,
No,
which is right.
That said, he ends up listening to your podcast. Someday you wouldn't say no to mine. Just Mr. Wonderful. You wouldn't say no to the companies that I'm working on. So let me just give you that disclaimer. So
I can assure you, if Mr. Podcast ever listens if Mr. Wonderful ever listens to this podcast, you'll be the first one that we let know about it. You have my word, sir. Given your technical background, we'll wrap this up here with one more question before we talk a bit about Nexos technologies and kind of your projects there. But given your background, I'm really fascinated to hear your thoughts on AI. And let me give a disclaimer here about this, which is obviously all of humanity is trying to figure out AI right now in this moment. So your opinions that you render now, you might be subject to change in 10 minutes or 10 days or whatever. But speaking about AI in negotiations, do you see any value with that in negotiations? Value, or even, do you feel like it's ethical? Obviously there's a lot of opinions about Chat GPT and creating work with that. So yeah, I guess because of your technical background, feel free to take that question any way you want. Your thoughts about AI in sales and negotiations. What are your thoughts there?
well, I think as a whole, largely,
Yeah.
overall, AI, I think it's more good than bad.
Mm-hmm.
There are aspects of it that are negative, and I think that us as a society, or if you want to blame government, I do think they need to get involved much deeper than they are, much quicker than they are, and put some regulation and guardrails around what's being developed.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
It's going to get out of control quick, and once it is, it's going to be very hard, if not impossible, to put the genie back in the bottle. But
Yep.
that said, now getting more specific to like sales and negotiation perspective, I think that AI is going to be useful in helping you determine your value and helping you, articulate the analytical parts of what will go into a negotiation.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it can help you identify your prospective markets and maybe even the people that you should be selling to, right? So in the process as I'm building out sales, right, help me qualify certain aspects of my list so that I can spend my time prospecting more efficiently. Help me, so my whole team can, not just me, obviously, but you know, and then different levels of the. I think when it comes down to the actual negotiation, me speaking with you and explaining why we're the best, why the value exists, why you should go with this solution, and why we're truly a partner. I don't see that changing too much with AI other than just, having that AI giving you good supporting data all the way through the sales process.
Hmm. So more of like AI kind of handling the science part of it. So analyzing and quantifying all of that data so that you can take that and then put that into the art form. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think AI is this far along yet, but let's say, I could maybe create a template and somehow pull all these data points together and get them all loaded into that template and just have all of this sales process autonomously happening and building. And maybe it even points out that's the person that you should go after, and here, give them this. And but it's still going to be at the 5 yard line to get you into that end zone there. It's still going to have to be a person that is executing with relationship skills.
Yeah, and that's actually what we've seen. So we have a negotiation management platform, like a CRM for negotiations, and we actually have AI built into that. But to do exactly that, it's quantifying large amounts of data that you look at from all the different plot points of how to structure a negotiation and bringing that all together for you to apply the art, right? At this point in time, there's just limitations to what AI can do. There was a thing on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you saw it, but there was some builders. They had a big, huge building on the corner of some street, and they were in the middle of it. And instead of the Tyvek wrap, they put a big wrap around the building, huge, and it said, "Hey, Chat GPT, come finish this building." Right. So it's doing a lot. I agree with you. I think that the benefits outweigh the risks. It's doing a lot, but there are still limitations. I'm 100% on board with that. So, with that, sir, I'd love to hear more about what's happening over at Nexos Technology. Either some or By the way, for our listeners, Lawrence is really involved in a lot of different things, has a lot of different hats. So I guess I'll turn that over to you, Lawrence, and say anything that you're involved in right now, whether that is Nexos or some of your coaching projects or anything. Tell us a little bit more about what you're into right now.
Coaching projects, nice. Yeah, so we'll come back to that maybe, but
Okay.
from a Nexos perspective,
Yep.
um, it's open banking, right? It's open bank. It depends what you want to call it. Open banking, banking as a service, banking as a platform. I typically call it open banking because it's really a little bit of both. Basically, banks can use Nexos API to quickly stand up digital products like near
Okay.
real term payments, settlements, fraud detection, online account creation, not just like submitting your info online, but like online account creation, virtual debit cards, credit cards, peer to peer payments. Yes, like Venmo, but overall much better.
Yeah.
And a lot more. It all has to do with this real time core that we stand up. So like our KYC, our BSA, AML technology, it's all rock solid, and usually even more than what the back end banks require. So with the API, the banks can spin up all these new digital offerings, right? You might have like a mom and pop bank that just doesn't have like this in-depth crazy IT department that could bring a new product to market. Well, they could take our API and have all these new digital products that the younger demographic, right, typically like younger successful clientele, they require these modern digital products. So they can, these smaller medium, implement our API and have all these modern day digital products. That's like the
Oh,
banking side of what Nexos does.
okay.
There's also the client side, right? So like the flip side where it's sort of
Mhm.
like merchants and the marketplaces, right? We connect to them directly with our API to the banks. So we basically reduce the transactional costs and we increase revenue and therefore profit by using this closed loop banking, right?
Oh,
So like gone are the days where you're paying like 3 to 5% just to process a sale, right? Just to process cards. And then you're waiting 2 to 5 days to actually get your money as a merchant. We settle that real time. You can, if somebody spends $100 at your store or on your website or wherever you're accepting payment, could be in your ERP system or in your billing system, could be software like a SaaS solution. Plug our
mm-hmm.
APIs in the back, and somebody buys $100 instead of you having to, accept only $97 because you gave 3% away. Now you're going to get, a lot more of that, if not all. And you're going to get it real time. You can go to your bank and take that money out within seconds. So it's real time settlement and it's closed loop banking. We remove the multiple people who were in the middle of the legacy, rails, we'll call it. We're basically proprietary closed loop rail. And we say closed loop rail because it's a closed loop transaction, but we actually integrate with all the other ones. So like we integrate with, the Zells and the PayPals and the FedNow's coming out. We're basically backward compatible to all the old archaic systems in the banks, and we're forward compatible to all the new stuff that's coming out too.
So it sounds like your solution is not only extremely useful to the banks, but also so a smaller merchant out there listening, is that not with that closed. And by the way, I'm learning as we talk here. So if you want to add anything to it, but with this closed looped system, the merchants are not only having lower fees, but also kind of a real time experience and able to plug in with some of these other legacy ones that they might already know and have been working with. Is that an accurate way to say it?
Yeah, correct. And the transactions are processed just as normal with a credit card or with a debit card. It's just there's nothing changes. You just get an extra percent or two on every transaction, and you get your money real time. So yes, for the small businesses, but think about what that means for the big businesses. If I could give you
Sure.
just 1% more on all your revenue, think about what that means, and that's happening today. We've been building for 4 years. We've been in the market now for a year, and we have a lot of great success stories.
Wow, that sounds amazing. And so the name of that is Nexos Technology. Is that right?
Correct. The website's nexosgo.com.
Nexosgo.com. Okay, so listen, before we go, I've truly enjoyed this, Lawrence. Again, as a guy who has a lot of different passion and interests and experience in life, is there anything that the listeners might want to know about Lawrence? Anything else that you're working on, or is that it for right now? Sharing a podcast.
Well, no, Nexos is definitely like the main focus of my day-to-day business. I have another venture that I'm advising on.
Okay.
But that is actually in the AI space. It's called Metafied. That provides real-time predictive tools to institutional and power traders in Web3 and emerging asset classes.
Okay.
So Metafied's digital asset ratings, basically like asset price correlations and asset attribution, asset attribute predictions, both through Metafied, like the web, the desktop, and the like API type of implementation. So that's really like predictive analytics for Web3. So a lot of crypto, a lot of coins, right? But you want to say, okay, what's going to happen with this predictive analytics? Just like we have on Wall Street, but we really don't have much of that in Web3. So there's that. I'm just advising on that. And then I'm also a youth, and last year I coached high school wrestling. So I do a lot of nonprofit stuff. I have multiple. I guess I'm on the board for 3 nonprofits, and I do a lot of youth coaching. Love it. That's actually.
Yeah, well, for sure. That's why I can sense that in our talking. Your kind of genuine patient nature. It sounds like somebody who might be involved in situations requiring a lot of patience, like youth coaching. So I think that's pretty cool. And what was the name of the project again that you're advising on? Can you say the name of the company again for our listeners?
Yeah, Metafied. It's METAFIDE.io.
Metafied. Okay, great. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on today, sir. And before we end here, I'll just open it up. Anything else that you want to add at all about anything?
No, just thank you very much for having me on. It's been really interesting. A lot of great questions. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you had a lot of great responses. I mean, this is the purpose of why we do this is that negotiations are different for everybody in every situation. And you've had some really great perspective, really unique ones. So we appreciate it. So, yeah, for all of our listeners, again, this is Lawrence Lanzilli. And again, he's with Nexos Technology if you want to check that out. And Lawrence, thank you so much for your time.